It's the Geeky Waffle Podcast.
Today we're talking about the very exciting, very anticipated Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm Candace, and with me is our friend Rachel.
Hello.
Hey, Rachel. Okay, so we literally just got out of the theaters. Rachel saw it for a second time, and I saw it for the first time today, and we are hyped. Right now, we're not going to talk any spoilers. We're just going to go overall. Overall, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you agree?
Yes. I gave it 5 out of 5 in my review. It I think is a perfect Spider-Man movie. And yeah. It's as we said before we started this is a very hard movie to talk about outside of spoilers. You're just like, yeah, it's good.
Okay, a few things I can say is this is the first of the MCU trilogies, let's call them trilogies, that is directed by one director, Jon Watts. And I feel like you can really feel it, even though this is MCU and it's very much a larger universe. The 3 Spider-Man movies in the MCU feel very concise, right? It feels like a trilogy.
Yeah, and
Bucky's got opinions.
It also made me excited for surprisingly Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because it is the same way. It's 2 movies are directed by the same directors. The third one's about to be. So getting to see the full visions, not that the other trilogies don't work. It's just
they're very different from each other. Every movie if we look at the Captain America to Winter Soldier, which is a cold spy, to Civil War, which is more of an Avengers movie.
Well, and but at least 2 of the 3 Captain America movies were the same directors. But yeah. It Thor is very different. Thor is, I think, different every single time.
Yeah.
Well, now Taika is doing the 4th one, but as well as the 3rd. But yeah, I think it helped to have Jon Watts complete his story and not have it be 3 different directors trying to tell this story. And I think it put a nice little bow on the Homecoming trilogy.
The Home trilogy, we say.
The Home trilogy, because it's he's coming. I think that was a whole little negotiation of contracts that led to him in
coming home to Marvel.
Yeah, well, because I think he was saying I don't want to be playing this character when I'm 32, and then everyone flipped out, and then he explained again what he actually meant, and then 2 days later, Amy Pascal was like, I have so many movies for Tom Holland in my brain. And I'm he was being real smart and sneaky with his word choice so that they got scared.
Yeah. And I remember it was 2 years ago, we all got really scared there wasn't going to be any more Tom Holland, Peter Parker. And thankfully we got it. And okay, we're going to go straight to spoilers because this is impossible. This is honestly impossible because they try to keep everything so secret, even though it wasn't quite very
well, now you understand how I've felt since Monday, where it's you're trying to be, everyone's how did you like it? And I'm it's great.
Yeah.
But they're why? I'm
I can't tell you a damn thing about this without spoiling it.
Yeah.
Okay, turn it off now. You've been warned. I don't want any bitching. These are moments that made us cheer. Let's talk about that. I was the only one in my theater that gasped and cheered when Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox, showed up as Peter Parker's lawyer. He was in one scene. And again, worst kept secret in the world.
Well, and also Tom Holland kind of messed that up himself by saying a dinner scene with he names Jon Favreau, Marisa Tomei, and somebody else. And so we're all would that be a lawyer? And a specific lawyer from Hell's Kitchen? Yeah, my screening both times cheered that tonight. Both times it was as soon as you saw his cane. Everyone knew. They saw the cane, they were Matt Murdock's here. And it was great. It ruled.
I watched this with a bunch of basic bitches. They didn't know.
Well, and it's also I'm so not mad. I'm so happy that Marvel did this, but I'm also annoyed that because I saw this movie on Monday, I had the reverse. But I wish Kingpin. I had seen Kingpin and then been Matt Murdock coming. Even though I knew it was going to be in this movie, regardless of, and we knew he was coming because Feige also said Charlie Cox is still Matt Murdock. It would have been so cool to see the Kingpin and then just be like, oh my God, it's gonna happen. He's gonna be his lawyer. But I was like, yeah, there he is.
So the whole thing, like, there's been rumors about this from like over a year. I remember hearing that a pizza delivery man was like, yo, Andrew Garfield just ordered a pizza for my place.
Oh yeah, he for sure did.
And he's in the Marvel area where only the Marvel people stay.
And then poor Andrew Garfield tried his hardest to keep it a secret. And it is the worst kept secret in Hollywood because it is so funny how hard Andrew Garfield truly tried to be like, I am not in this movie. I'm not in this movie.
Like Tic Tac Boom, all the press during that time. Tobey Maguire, every single thing for over the past year.
Tobey Maguire, no.
No,
him and Tom Holland would go out and like party. And they were like pictured together partying and all this stuff. And everyone goes, meanwhile, Andrew Garfield's over here like, I have never seen Spider-Man.
What is a Spider-Man?
And so it was just so funny because it was like, this poor man who has so much press, and like everyone knows you can't ask Tom Holland that, so no one does. So it was just being asked of Andrew Garfield, and he kept trying so hard to be like, "No, I'm not in this. I'm not in it. I'm not in it. I'm not in it." And then Tobey Maguire, who is not doing anything with his life, just got to do whatever the hell he wanted. And so it was so funny watching this movie, being like,
"Wait." So my thing was, I'm kind of like MJ, and like, expect disappointment and you won't get disappointed. So it was like, okay, they're just gonna have like a small cameo, like he's gonna hand off the villains to them if they're in this at all. So when they showed up, like a 2/3 into this movie, and they like stayed.
They're in the entire last act of this movie, and it is glorious. I truly thought from the last trailer on, I was like, they're gonna show up when Doctor Strange is like, there are more coming and I can't stop it. I was like, the minute I saw that, I was like, that's when they're coming in at the final battle. It's gonna be like, he's gonna be like, who are these guys? And it's gonna be those two, and it'll be fine. Getting to see 3 Peter Parkers doing their stuff together for so long, I like couldn't handle like them like talking over each other and running into each other or like
pointing at each other like the meme.
And then when they're all on the thing and they keep messing up the fight and they're like, this isn't working. Wait, I'm Spider-Man. No, you're supposed to be too. And they're just like yelling at each other.
Or when they're giving each other affirmations, like Tobey Maguire's like, you are amazing to the Amazing Spider-Man, you know?
Well, it's so funny because I said to my boss, like, I'm the queen of being like, oh, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid when I'm talking about myself. And every time I do it, like, especially like on a like meeting on like Zoom or whatever, I will see my boss be like, and he wants to be like, stop bringing yourself down. And as soon as I saw that scene, I was like, this is literally working at the Mary Sue. This is me and Dan, where I'm like, I'm sorry I'm lame. I'm sorry I like messed up. And he's like, hey, no, you didn't. You're great. Don't call yourself that. And he's like, oh, okay, thanks, man.
Oh my God. I just lost it. And like Andrew especially, not that Toby's not great, but like Andrew like didn't miss a beat.
No.
Like he's been acting like he's been wearing that suit for the past like 10 years, you know, or however long it was.
Well, 2012, I think. So
yeah. Like
10 years.
Yeah.
Or 2011. It's been like 10 years. But God, just like so good, and also like whatever was cheesy in this movie like works with the payoffs. Like I said it, and like watching it a second time, like Aunt May saying, with great power comes great responsibility. The first time I like groaned because I was like, oh, people are gonna make fun of this scene. And then the payoff of like all 3 of them standing on a roof, like being like, no, like that is something that each of us had to learn, that like with this power, like we have a big responsibility to give to the world. And like, it was just so good. And then watching it this time around, I'm like, oh no, it wasn't cheesy at all. It works, especially when you know
what's coming.
That like he hadn't learned that lesson. Like his Uncle Ben didn't give him that line. His Uncle Ben, we don't know how he died, but we know like,
or even if he's dead, what if he just like upped and left? Like,
oh no, I think I think I don't remember if they say he died, but like he has the suitcase and stuff, so you have to assume it was like
Yeah, something like that. But he says, Peter says in the first one, when Ned's like, you got to tell your aunt, he's like, I can't do that to her after everything she's been through. So it's
with
alluded
them.
that he died. But yeah,
Yeah.
I already imagine some fanboys bitching about how Aunt May's given the Uncle Ben role. But it's always, I'm like so tired of this. Like, they only bitch when it happens with the female characters and no other time. I'm like, do you know how much the MCU has changed from the comics? Like,
I will say the fanboys do hate MCU Peter for Uncle Ben is Tony Stark and blah, 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 and like they don't like that. So
okay,
like
wait, okay, we're gonna go into we'll talk about that now. Okay, so at the end, the way that, because the spell went awry, and more of them were coming through because Green Goblin blew up the thing that was keeping it all together. Peter's like, make everyone forget me to Doctor Strange. Everyone forget Peter Parker, and then that would stop the spell. So everybody forgets him, including Doctor Strange. And Doctor Strange actually made me cry a little bit when he says, everyone who knows you and love you, we will forget you. Alluding, like, saying that he loves Peter.
Well, yeah, because he is everyone's son, and that's like what's so good about MCU. MCU Peter is my favorite because, and I've said this before, and I'll say it till I die. He is the first time that I watched a Spider-Man movie, and I was like, "Oh, he's a kid." Because even though the other ones are set in high school, that is a child. And that is a child trying to figure out how to be a superhero.
Tobey Maguire looks like, when he's in high school, like, he looks like he's going to pick up his kid.
Yeah,
like, you know, like,
and even babyface Andrew Garfield looked like he was like 21. Like
he looked like mid-20s. Like, he
looked older than a high school kid, and so it's like you're like, all right, but you can figure it out. You're like 19, 20, like you're okay. You're an adult, but like,
yeah, but
Tom Holland just now looks like they did when they started their franchise, and he is supposed to be graduating high school.
And he also, like, it's also the writing too. He's so relatable as a teenager, especially like when you compare him with other like adult superheroes. But yeah, Tom Holland's is my favorite too, and I am a Sam Raimi tiny fangirl. Like, trilogy was my jam as a child, and I rewatched that DVD multiple times. But I feel like he's the best of both Tobey and Andrew's Peter and put together. Like, yeah, I want to wrap him in a blanket and feed him cookies and tell him it's going to be all right. Like, I love him so much.
Well, and this movie in particular, like, showed that is who he is. He is the mix of the both of them, and I hope that like this movie silences the argument, like, oh, but he's not good. It's like, no, he is, and it showed it by bringing both the old Spider-Man actors in to be like, look, this is the part of me that he has, and this is the part of me that he has, and we understand this aspect of him because of this, and this, and like, I like that this movie like basically was like, oh, everything you've complained about, we were always planning on making that happen. We always had an idea for it. You guys just wouldn't wait.
Yeah, the whole thing was, it makes perfect sense because he had to be brought into that universe, into the Avengers. And a lot of the complaint was, oh, he's rich, he's not struggling. That's what our Peter Parker does. And they completely were like, at the end, he has no friends, no family, he has no money. He has absolutely nothing. He has a book for his GED, and that just broke my heart, knowing how hard he worked in high school. He was trying to get to college and stuff like that.
So he wanted to go to MIT, and now he's like, God, all I wanted. And the next one, I want him to go to Joe's Pizza so bad, and I want him with a camera. Like, that's like been my biggest complaints, is because he's not poor thing. Is I'm like, yes, he is poor. He has Tony Stark's resources. He does not have his money. Like, and that has been made clear time and time again. Like, his phone is broken, or like something else.
He lives in a small apartment with his aunt. They haven't moved. If he had money, they would have moved.
Yeah, it's just he has, and like in May, even if they did have money, we'd be like, we're giving it away to these people. Like,
yeah,
it's just that they are like, well, he has high-tech suits. He doesn't have the cloth suit. And I'm like, yeah, because he has the resources of the Avengers. Like, and now they took it away. So I was like, there you go.
It would have been so weird if he is part of the Avengers or he knows Tony Stark and Tony gives him nothing.
Mhm.
Like, you are bringing a
Tony's
child
like,
in-
hey, you can have some lycra here.
Yeah. You're bringing a 16, 17-year-old into battle and you're like, here you go. Like, here's aliens.
Yeah.
I like that line where Andrew and Toby were like, you've been to space.
Yeah, it was like, I love that whole part because he was like, I liked Toby's performance of it where he's like, yeah, you said my web block and it made me think about it. Like, it was just like the way that conversation unfolded, which was just Tobey Maguire Spider-Man A to seeing the conversation from like, oh yeah, that made me think about me when I fought this alien. But it was on Earth. Like Andrew Garfield's like, I want to fight an alien. I just fought a rhino.
I know a Russian
A
man. in a
Russian-
rhino suit. Paul Giamatti got name checked.
Audrey was there. But it was just so, it was so good. And like, there was a part in this one, speaking of things that I screamed during, where like, it's like Peter is clearly upset. He's still thinking about Goblin, and they're like all in the lab. And he's sitting there and he's like, Nick, can you run diagnostics? And he's like upset. And if you look at the background, Andrew Garfield's just like clearly finished what he needed to do. He's just sitting there. And it's so good because he says, and he makes it clear, he goes, I can make this anti-serum for Connors. I've already done it once. And they went, okay, great, go do that. And he was like, okay.
I need more
like,
props. I need more props for it.
he was about to be like, I need something else to do. I've said I've already done it. It's going to take me like 2 seconds. And then they just don't give him anything. So he's just like, okay, just going to sit here.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I felt like when Toby's like, my back is hurting kind of thing. Because there
Mhm.
was rumors like he hurt his back and like in Spider-Man 2 and Jake Gyllenhaal was going to replace him. Like that was the old rumor. And also like when he does the train scene, the famous train scene, like obviously
Yeah.
he's stretching his back like a lot. And I thought that was really cute that Andrew's Peter cracked his back.
I love it so much because I
It was
like
just also great.
that is also such a like, I don't know if it's like a generational thing or if it's like specific to theater kids, but that is something we used to do in college all the time where we would do the like cross your arms and someone would pick you up and pop your
Yeah.
back out. Oh, and it's something I've been thinking about recently. I'm like, man, I just want someone to pop my back like that. And then I watched this movie and I was like, did somebody hear me talk about how I wanted that? And then like I will say, and this one is specific to me, and I wrote an article and people gave me so much crap for it, and then the movie did it. So LOL. Someone said I was body shaming for this, and I was not. But I said all I wanted out of this movie was both Andrew Garfield and Peter and Tom Holland's Peter Parker's to realize that Tobey Maguire's web shooters were organic web shooters, and be like,
body shaming. That's a weird thing.
listen, and I wanted them to be like, hey, what the hell is that? And that's exactly what happened. And then I love the follow-up scene where he's like, we're not making fun. We're just confused.
Yes. And they're like, Tom's is like, does it come out anywhere else?
Tom was like, I got follow-up questions. And like I like that moment because you could tell it was like Andrew Garfield Peter was very much like, I also want to know, but I'm an adult.
Yeah,
But that
I
is a
can't ask that.
17-year-old kid. He's gonna ask it.
Yeah.
Like if the 17-year-old gets the answer, I benefit from the question.
I mean, we were all thinking it, honestly.
But that was like the moment that I truly like screamed because that was I didn't get my one request out of Far From Home, but I did get my one request out of this movie, which was the organic web shooter conversation.
Gosh, I had such little like expectations going into this. I was just happy that we got Doc Ock, played by Alfred Molina, who again, chef's kisses, does an
Mhm.
amazing job. And then we have Norman Osborn, who we also knew that we kind of saw in the trailer that we had Lizard, Sandman, and Electro.
Electro we knew because Jamie
Yeah,
Foxx had been announced.
He had ooped it on Instagram. I didn't know they were gonna get all the actors back. I thought maybe like we'll just see like a flash of them, like the sand and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
just be like oh, look, that's that guy and that guy. But no, we got the actual actors back. It's amazing that
Yeah.
they could get everyone there.
Well, Thomas Hayden Church was the one that I did not know was going to be. Risa
Me either.
Fons had said something. So, like, someone had asked me, said something about coming back for Spider-Man. So, like, I knew he was involved in some way or another, but I didn't know if you would see his face. I thought maybe he was just
Yeah.
doing voiceover for Lizard.
Mhm.
Jamie, I knew. Willem, everyone, like, assumed. And then as it got closer, like, he
Yeah.
was in the press.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, he got a poster.
Well, because you heard the laugh, and I think that was like when
Yeah.
everyone goes, he's in the movie. But and then which I already bought. I already bought a bright purple sweatshirt to wear with my winter coat, which is green plaid. Like I've already had that coat. Um and as soon as I saw this movie, I was like, I'm buying a purple sweatshirt. So I can just walk around looking like the green. Sorry, I swore.
Okay, I can beep you out.
Walking around dressed like the Green Goblin. I don't care. Like, yes, he was horrible because the Green Goblin is horrible, but he was the perfect Green Goblin. And
Oh, that was another moment that everyone in my theater was laughing at when he's with May at the soup kitchen and he's putting things in his, like he's out of focus, but you see him putting things in his coat.
well, this was the first time I noticed that. Like the first time I think I was paying too much attention to Peter and May, and this time all of a sudden I just see the pink box slide towards him and he starts taking donuts out of his pocket. I was like,
Cracking up.
what is going on? This movie has such emotional highs and lows. Like you're sitting there and you're just cackling at things, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, cool!
Sobbing.
This is really yeah." Like when Andrew Garfield catches MJ, he's like, "Are you good?" And then you look and he's crying,
Yeah.
and then it instantly like I started crying, and then I laughed because she's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
You caught me. I'm fine. And you are crying. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine.
It's just like when he was like crying, looking at them too. I was like, Toby's like, you okay?
He said, I love you. And they both went, thank you.
The worst thing here, he just want friends so badly.
He truly is so alone. He just wanted friends. He wanted someone to talk to. And he went, I always wanted brothers. And those two are like,
we just met.
well, because when you think about it, he barely had friends.
Yeah.
In his movies. Like, Toby's
He
at
didn't
least
have
had
friends.
Harry. Well, I mean,
And-
he ends up having like a relationship with Harry, but it's not the same as like Toby and Harry.
Yeah, but at least like Toby's, we find out, ends up with MJ, Mary Jane.
Yeah, well, sort of. He said it's complicated. We're fine though, and then never.
He said
back
they
to the
make it work,
conversation.
so I'm gonna take as someone as a child who just wanted them together. I'm gonna just be like, they're together. They made it work.
I do like that Kirsten Dunst was correct. She said, "I'm not in this movie," and she was not.
So did Emma Stone.
Yeah, and Emma Stone also said,
Everyone was like, I'm in, or they're in this movie, and that person's in this movie. I'm like, that's way too many people. But you know who was also in this movie that I was very delighted to see? Dummy, the robot.
Yeah,
It lives with Happy now.
even though he destroyed Peter's Death Star, which, as someone who has a brother whose Millennium Falcon got destroyed, and he still talks about how it got broken by somebody. I'm
Rachel, was
shocked.
that somebody you?
No, it was not me. It
It
was not me. It was my brother's friend, and my brother's friend like didn't care that he made it. It's a whole thing. But the Millennium Falcon got broken, and so when I watched Dummy do that, I went, "No!" But Peter didn't seem to care, and I was like, "Peter, you just broke the Death Star. What do you mean you don't care?"
He had other things in his mind.
You
Oh,
know?
speaking of another high and low moment is when Ned asked Toby's Peter, like, hey, did you have a best friend? He died in my arms. And then Ned is just awkward around Tom's Peter.
I love when he walks up to him and he goes, he like says something, he goes, I am never going to turn evil and harm you. And then you see Andrew's car just tap him on the shoulder and be like,
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah, you did it. You did it.
Well, because it's like, it works so well because those two Peters were like very anxious and weird as teenagers. So now being surrounded by teenage them and teenage like friends of him, they're like, we got this. And they don't. Like they're horrible talking to them. But like I do like in this movie that I like that there is never a question of his age with them.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from the fact that they both were like teenage heroes. And it's like everyone else is like, I forget you're a kid. And even Stephen Strange says to him, oh, sometimes I forget you're just a kid.
Yeah.
And I like that that never happened with those two, because they were like, no, we've been here and we know the amount of responsibility that's on your shoulders. So treating you like a child is not doing anything to help you.
Yeah.
And it's so good. Ugh.
Just getting very much into the Spider-Verse vibes, and I loved it.
Yeah, which it is, but it's like a different reason. Like, it's like, yes, they got brought in because of like a problem and that they had to solve it and then everyone
Yeah.
had to go home. So that is Spider-Verse-y, but it's like, I still think they're going to do a Spider-Verse movie where that brings in all these different versions of Spider-Man,
Mhm.
not just here's 3 Peter Parkers that you've already seen. And like baiting us with the Miles thing. I'm like, ah, come on.
Oh yeah, with Electra's comment. I was like, is he coming? Is Miles coming? Nope.
No, they were just like, well, because this trilogy, and I think that is part of what like Tom Holland was saying. He was like, I'll take it, like Miles deserves his time, because it's been since the first of his movies that we've been hinting things about Miles.
Yeah, Donald Glover's character.
It was Aaron.
Yeah. It says, I got a nephew, and we all know who that nephew is.
Yep. Ay.
So many feelings. So many feelings. Okay. So there were so many callbacks to the previous film. There was a nice moment where Norman puts his shattered goblin mask on like the dumpster, and that was kind of like the Spider-Man 2 when like, and they reference that too. He's like, you ever get web blocked?
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about, oh god, the crisis. Jameson and also Ned calls him a dinosaur, the lizard.
Yeah.
And like George Stacy keeps calling him a dinosaur in Amazing Spider-Man. And I just
Right.
love it. And I love how like Tom Holland's like, I didn't know you could talk.
Oh god, he had so many good reactions in this movie. Like he normally does, and like I love how his Peter reacts to things. But there were some moments that I'm just like he was clearly like, hi, there's a lot of things going on. I don't have time. So like here's what we're doing. And like it ruled. Because I think like on the bridge, it was on the when he gets Doc Ock and he goes, hey, until I figure this out, you're staying locked, and like pulls his coat out and has him like locked up. But it was just the way he reacted to like Alfred Molina was so good. But yeah, there's so many callbacks, especially like they had straight up just lines.
Yeah, you know what? I am something of a scientist myself, which is a meme. But or Osborn says that, and I cheered during that part.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Or you listen to me.
When the two Spider-Mans see the MCU Spider-Mans, it's so hard to talk about this in this way. You hear like the Danny Elfman theme a little bit, and then you also hear I don't know who the composer of Amazing Spider-Man, but you also hear that theme too. So the music cues were very well done.
Hans Zimmer does that one.
Oh yeah, the kind of thing. Yeah, the only 2 villains that were missing from this that were in the previous movies was like Rhino and Harry Osborn, but like Harry Osborn like is Green Goblin, and Rhino was like in a 5-second clip. Really,
and we missed. There was no Dane DeHaan, even though he is Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And there was no Topher Grace.
Yeah, I was okay with that. Topher version.
I said, and I stand by it. I wish that this movie had Venom in it, and the whole time you think it's Tom Hardy, but he just doesn't come out of the Venom suit. He stays in it, and he's there, he's talking, and it's all this stuff, and then it's when he sees Toby, he reveals himself, and it's Topher Grace.
That would have been hilarious.
It's all I wanted, and I would have been so happy because I loved. I don't know if we want to get to it at this point, but I love the end credit scene because it fits so perfectly with that version of Eddie Brock and Venom that they would take so long to figure out what is going on that by the time they figure it out and they're ready to go, everything is over and they are going back to their
and like Eddie's supposed to be this investigative journalist, you know?
But of course he got trashed in Mexico. he's just like, whatever. And then Danny Rojas shows up because that's the bartender is Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso. A thing that only me and my friends clocked. Everyone else in the theater was like, who is that? And I'm like, Danny Rojas. I'm trying to think of, there was one person, and I hope they had a fun time. I tweeted about this when he's in the Mirrorverse, and he goes, oh, is that a whatever?
Golden ratio, I believe, or something like that.
Or he says like the diagram of what it is.
Yeah.
I can't remember what term it is, but he says it and he goes, oh my God, is this just geometry? And one girl in the front of the theater just went, woo, and just clapped twice and stopped. And I went, happy for her.
Yeah, math
Nobody
nerd.
said geometry. And then like later when he makes the math joke, it's
Yeah.
great. But like it was just, she just clapped twice. And I was like, all right, interesting time to be like, geometry.
Doctor Strange's hairline was very distracting for me.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I do like that in this movie in canon that he dyes his hair.
Yeah, MJ found
MJ. I mean, MJ, she is my favorite version of MJ. I know she's not MJ, whatever, people who want to yell, but I love that this movie was like, her name is MJ Watson, but she does not go by Watson.
Yeah, and I like that Toby says, my MJ.
Mhm.
Like he's quantifying. And then even Andrews is like, Gwen, she was my MJ. So they're saying like these are the same.
Yeah.
Stop bitching about it.
Nothing for Shailene Woodley's MJ, who was supposed to be at the
Yeah,
end.
who filmed
The Amazing
and
Spider-Man 2?
dyed her hair and everything and then got deleted.
Yeah, I think about that often. She was supposed to be MJ. But yeah, it's the thing about this movie is like it is so much. Like I wrote as soon as I came out on my screen, I wrote down like all of the think pieces I wanted to write about. And like I have to like figure out how I want to like talk about all of this stuff because it's fan servicey, but not in a bad way. It's fan servicey in a way that I was like, and I've said this is my second podcast I've said this on. This is currently my favorite Spider-Man movie. It moved Spider-Verse to number 2. However,
Wow.
I know it is because I was emotionally manipulated into enjoying this movie. I was like, I will always enjoy this movie because any movie that has Peter Parker in it, I'm just predisposed to liking because I like him as a character.
Okay.
It's why Civil War is my favorite MCU movie because he shows up like no matter what.
But is it fan service if it's earned?
Well,
that's my question because
yes and no, because the movie itself is built around having fans react in a way that you're like, yes, but it is earned in the sense that it's like the movie does a really good job and like it works.
it's natural. It feels
Yeah.
natural to me. Like the conversations that we've wanted them to have. Like we were talking about the web shooters. Like
Mhm.
that's something I wanted them to bring up because like watching the animated series versus watching the Sam Raimi thing and you get really confused because that's not what happens with the web shooters. That's not part
Yeah.
of the powers. But yeah, having them talk about that, it felt so natural. Like that's something the two Spider-Mans would want to ask the other Spider-Man about.
I do like that he said, because I clocked it this time and I was like, hell yes, because I make the joke. I don't know if you've heard this joke, but me and my friend always talk about it where there was a comedian, he was like, yeah, I think that movie was Spider-Man 2. And he says Spider-Man as a bit. But if I'm talking about multiple Spider-Mans,
Yeah.
I say Spider-Man. And I loved in this movie where Tom Holland is swinging through a thing. He's like, okay, Spider-Mans. And like, he does not say men. He says Spider-Mans. And I was like, this is great. I loved it.
Now we know it's canon. That's what we're supposed to call them, the Spider-Mans.
All I needed was for him to be like, don't forget the hyphen. And I'd be like,
Yes.
But like, yeah, it's, well, and like we said, the web shooter thing, but also like, I still am thinking about when they're all fighting with each other because they're like, we're not doing great. Like we have to find some other way of communicating to each other. And it was just all of them talking over each other to figure out a better way of talking to each other is so Peter that I was just like, this is so good. I love it so much.
And yeah, like people predicted that Andrew's Peter would save MJ because we saw in the trailer that she was falling. But again, it feels earned, and it is a callback, and it is fan service, but it works on an emotional level. And what are comic book movies, but not just fan service?
Yeah. Well, and this movie, using that scene as an example, did a really good job of Tom Holland's is falling, he's almost has her, in comes Goblin and like stops it. So much like what happened in Andrews. And then it cuts to him screaming no, and then he goes diving for her. And it was like having that before the end where he's caught her and he's crying, just like you're like, oh my God, it's that same moment. And I was like, even though like the Gwen moment, like people were like, oh, I saw that coming. And you're like, yeah, she's in the damn coat. She's in the coat from the comics. Of course you
Yeah.
saw that coming.
Anyone
like-
who thinks Gwen Stacy, even before The Amazing Spider-Man, knew she's the dead girlfriend
Yeah.
of Peter Parker, because that
Well-
was such a big deal when it happened.
It's the dead girlfriend that like, and I hate saying it like this, but it's the dead girlfriend that like comic fans knew, because they like erased her from every live action that ever existed until the Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then that's when people are like, where's MJ? It's like, she's the second one. There's a reason why she doesn't know he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's because of Gwen. So I think that's why I like the Amazing Spider-Man movie. Like, I like them a lot because I like Andrew better than I like Toby. As I got older, like I realized I liked Andrew's better than Toby's, and then now I like Tom's better than both. But like, I liked those because they were more true to like the origins of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone was so like, I love the Raimi ones that they didn't give them the time of day.
Yeah.
And so I like this movie because it kind of makes both of those trilogies more important. Even though they both were important in their own ways, like it makes it so you're like, oh, okay, like yeah, those are important aspects of this for blah blah blah. And like you want to go back and watch them versus like,
Yeah, it's part of Spider-Man history.
yeah.
Either because there's a lot of verses I felt like people were like Toby versus Andrew kind of thing. And it's just like, no, we can love them all. I love all three of them.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like you put a Spider-Man movie on and it doesn't matter who it is or what it is, I'm sitting in front of it and I'm watching it. But like, I think everyone gets so bogged down in the fight that like this movie, I like how just open and honest it is. And it's like, yeah, we know what we are. We know this is a fan service movie, but it's also a good one. So like
Yeah.
you just are like, yeah, you're right. This is a good movie and it is what we all kind of wanted. And
It's what we came
also-
here for.
Yeah.
And
it just
more.
works.
It does. It works very well. And yeah, I tweeted this. I was like, this is my new favorite Spider-Man movie, but I know it's only my favorite because of the 9 that came before it.
Mhm.
Because it's just like, I feel like this way a little bit about Rogue One. Like, loving Rogue One, you have to understand the history of it before it. Because it is a great movie, but if it didn't have the movies previous, it wouldn't stand alone. Just like,
Yeah, I'm interested to see how like kids who didn't watch the other ones and only watched Tom Holland's would react to that. Like, I mean, a lot of people have gone back and watched those if they hadn't seen them or grown up with them like we did. But like, grew up with them like we did. But like I would be interested to. I don't think my brother would ever go for this, but like my niece is 1, so I would maybe be like, hey, what if we showed her the Tom Holland ones first and just saw what happens with Noam? And like maybe I'll do that with my 11-year-old niece because I don't think she's seen any of these. So I can just be like, let's watch Spider-Man because she likes Gwen and stuff. So I would be like, let's watch these ones and watch Tom Holland ones and see if she gets it. Or if it's just like white noise. She's like, I don't know who any of these
Rachel
people are.
doing experiments on her nieces for science.
Saying, yeah, but like it is for science. And then she'll get older and be like, yeah, my aunt decided to show me these and then go back because she wanted to see how I reacted. I mean, listen, in my defense, people do it all the time. That's what the machete order is. That's what like how people do all that stuff. So it's like I would be interested to see how someone reacted to watching the 3 Tom Hollands and then going back and watching the other ones.
But speaking of all those movies, I feel like this brings like to the heart of what Peter is.
Mhm.
is he's a good kid who just wants to save people. And nothing against the Toby and Andrew ones, but
Well, it's what was really nice about this is it's like obviously like this is him becoming Spider-Man was was the journey he took on these three movies. Like we all thought, oh, we missed his origin. They skipped it. It's like they didn't. It was the trilogy. But I liked how within it they like had him come to terms with the fact that it's like you're not sometimes you have to just be a guy who wants to save people. You don't have to save the world every single time. And it
Yeah.
took erasing himself from the world in order to realize like, oh, I can be a neighborhood Spider-Man and like take on these smaller things. And like I was on a thing earlier and they were saying how they thought that this was like, oh, if they decided no more Spider-Man movies after this, then that would make sense with how this movie ended. And I was like, no, I think they're finally like at a point where he can be his own hero for a while. And then, and like, I personally think that this could lead into him having a moment with Kingpin, which is all I want because I like Kingpin and Spider-Man. And I want him to have like a Craven moment and like have all these like smaller scale things. And I think this gives them the option to do like a 3-movie arc of that.
yeah, put him
Before
in
he's
college.
back, before he's, yeah, put him in college, do a small like
Have him-
3-movie arc of that, and then put him back in as like the leader of the Avengers.
Yeah, because I don't think we're going to get an Avengers movie for a while.
Well, no, they have to reverse what they just did, or
Mm.
like everyone has to relearn who Peter is prior to him being in charge of that. Like, I think like I know at the end of that movie he like put his letter in his pocket and like whatever, but I don't think that's the end. I think there's gonna be like it's gonna be revealed like MJ wrote a note to herself on her phone that was like remember Peter and then like finds it
Yeah.
or something. Like something's gonna happen that's whatever, but I
That
don't
goes
think
into
that's
the
the
whole
end.
thing is like, so did the spell like erase like video footage and everything like
Yeah.
that? Like nobody knows who Peter Parker is. Did it just
Well,
erase their minds or
did he
erase all the
also-
evidence too?
Did he also mess up the other two's
Oh, that's a good
universes?
point.
Like I thought about that this time around. I'm like, what about those two? Like, did you erase the people? Granted, if this movie means like does anything about the Amazing Spider-Man movies, it's that he's lonely, so he's like, it doesn't really matter for me. But like,
Yeah, but if like Toby's married with kids,
and he rolls it, and they're like, "You are," and he's like,
I am your father.
"Funny." Like, I just thought about, I'm like, or is he
Yeah.
just the Tom Holland? Or like, I was like, I got questions.
No, the spell
Just
was kind of
questions.
confusing because like he was moving into his new apartment and he had stuff, and then
And
he
his
sees
Ouija book.
he sees Happy, and Happy knew May and knew May through Spider-Man. And you're like, what do people think when they think Spider-Man? Like,
Well, and I also what I don't get is Stephen Strange says in the beginning of this movie, do you remember the night on blah 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 blah? And Wong is like, no, and he goes, exactly. And I'm like, but you remember.
yeah. I thought at least like he would remember or something like that, but apparently not.
I feel, I don't know, something has to happen.
Yeah.
There has to be some catch that they are not telling us on purpose.
Yeah, like how does he rent an apartment, get a job, do anything like that if he never
Yeah, he has
existed
no
before?
identity. I don't know. Maybe like he has an identity and has records and stuff. It is just that no one knows who he is, but he has all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they'll figure it out. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We're thinking too much about it.
interesting. We're like, this doesn't make any sense.
It's a comic book movie. It makes sense in some weird way. Rachel, can you tell people where they can find you online to listen and read more Spider-Man things?
You can read my work on themarysuit.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Rachel Leishman, and I'm on other social media as Rachel_Leishman. And if you want to hear about my why Pedro Pascal should be Craven the Hunter theories, you can also listen to Pedro Pascal.
Perfect. And you can find us at thegeekywolf.com. Check out all our shows. Stay geeky, everyone.